Board games, board games is what I'm talking about. Board games, I'm not gonna shout. I am starting off this streaming with a little bit of singing. And over here to this side of me is the person known as Serenity. We're here to talk about a game from 1993, and Netrunner is its name. It is a very old CCG. It's only been played a couple of times by me. I know some people think it's amazing and they keep working on some new things they're making, and we're here to talk about Netrunner. Netrunner is what we're talking about. Netrunner, I'm not gonna shout. Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good whatever it is, wherever you are. Hello, Ben and Kelly Lee. It is super lovely to see you. Thank you very much for joining in. As you know, it is Bezzy Beats and Board Game Blether every day today, and for the next 60 days, I am going to be streaming at 10 a.m. UK time, and today I have this amazing guest. I am delighted to be chatting about the third, I don't know how to describe it. It's like a fan project where you're basically bringing something back from the ashes. Is that a fair?
I think that probably be better to say we just wouldn't let it die. So
okay.
So instead of this being like it resurrected, we've like come in with the crash paddles and gone clear, shot the game, and it's got back up, and it's fine now.
So yeah, for those who don't know, this is one of the first CCGs ever after me. I mean, obviously, if you're watching this, you must know Magic the Gathering, which is the original CCG by Richard Garfield, and also Richard Garfield went on to make Star Wars and Battletech and Vampire the Eternal Struggle, which was very multiplayer focused, and then one game which was asymmetric, which was concentrating a lot more on two-player, a bit on the mind games, a little bit of bluffing maybe in there, but still using all the techniques that Richard Garfield had developed. And that was, of course, Netrunner. And then it didn't do very well for some reason. And then, I don't know, like 20 years later, FFG added it to its Android universe. And then people are like, hey, it's here. And then after a while, the license expired. And that's basically it. Is that a fair, just for a very brief overview for the intro?
Yeah. So Richard Garfield, after having made Magic, wanted to make something that used slightly more poker elements of like the bluffing and that aspect of the game. And Netrunner was born. And I'll be honest, I think it's his best game. I mean,
those are strong words. I mean, I know that Calvin Wong Saloon is on record as saying it's the best game ever.
Yeah, there are a lot of people I know who say it's the best game ever. I can't think of a better one, but I wouldn't have dedicated, I suppose, nearly 3 years of my life to helping keeping it going for free. What is basically amounts to a second full-time job sometimes, if it wasn't a fantastic game.
And you are, yep. I am going to get into all of this. We're going to talk about all of this. We are going to first spend 10 minutes or 15 or maybe even 20 minutes going through the regular sections, going through the recent highlights, having some questionably quick questions, and then we will get on topic. So let's start off with recent highlights, living life and seeing the sights, recent highlights, playing games and other delights, recent highlights. So I have recently, I've been reading a couple of books. I read this yesterday evening. It's quite a quick one, Little Prince. It's in my native language. This one's in English. I've not read the French one, although at the end I was thinking, you know what, maybe I should read the original, because my French isn't good enough, but I think I could muddle through it in maybe a week if I worked really hard at it. And by the end, you know, I just love the whimsy of it. I do also like Little Prince, Make Me a Planet, bringing it back to board games. I think that was brilliant. The other Little Prince games are a bit naff, to be honest. But Make Me a Planet, great game. Original book, great book. Have you read this, Serenity?
I think I have, but not for a very, very long time, and certainly not in French. My French is awful.
That is totally fair. It's just such beautiful allegories. I've been reading a wee bits of this. I'm just really impressed with Schmitzberger talking about the nature of making house rules and how things can be adapted. There is a chapter all about handicaps. Yes, there's a lot of game-specific stuff, but this, I would say there's a couple of chapters of it where, yeah, this is valid for anyone, and 90% of the book, let's be honest, unless you're actually going to play those versions, it's a bit skippable. And also, in the morning, I did an unboxing that people might have watched of Hideous Abominations, which has some of the best artwork I've ever seen. I'm not going to open the box, but you can get an idea of what's going on. There's basically 208 unique bits of art in this game, which is quite a bit. And they're all grotesque and... yeah, also playing a wee bit of games on Steam, and that was some of my recent highlights. Getting out, seeing the sun, just having a lovely day, reading, playing games, all sorts of things. But what about people in the chat? What about you, Serenity? Let's move to you.
All I have been doing lately is Netrunner, because we've just had our latest release, which like 4 weeks worth of release hype. And then I had a week off the internet, and then I came back from my week off the internet to run a Netrunner tournament. And then I ran another Netrunner tournament yesterday. So I have played very little Netrunner, but talked about it a lot. How
do Netrunner tournaments work in these days? Is it Tabletop Simulator or?
We have our own online platform, gintechie.net, where you can come and you can play for free. All of the cards are on there. We work very closely with the developers so that the day our sets get released, the new cards are on there ready to play with. But we run all of our tournaments on there, and we have a rather large Discord now that we use to run all of the events. We've been doing them online since even before the pandemic, because we used to run some online tournaments anyway. So we've got quite slick at running that now.
That's amazing. I've heard of this. I've not actually investigated it myself, and so, but I assume there's all sorts of ranking and all sorts of internal stuff to make sure that you can always get a game against someone of a similar skill.
No, I mean, there's no ranking involved. It's just if you are new to the game, you just put beginner in the game title, and someone else who's a beginner will come and join. There's generally like 60 games going on at a time. So it's fairly easy to find a game, and you know, on the off chance you can't, there is a community-run Discord called Green Level Clearance, which is set up for new players. So you just have to go in there and go, hey, I want a game, I've got this deck I want to try, and someone will give you a game. There's like 1,000 people on there, more than that, I don't know, a lot. There's a lot of people on there, and there's a lot of new players as well, so you'll always be able to get a game.
That does sound fantastic. And of course, there's all sorts of infrastructure that is going to be really difficult to bring in, but we can talk about that, you know, but Games Cupboard says the recent highlight was playing King of 12. Oh yes, this is by Rita Modal, who I have on the show about once a week. And yeah, every Wednesday, well, every other Wednesday, we're making a game together on the stream. And then every other Tuesday, we get together with Matthew Dunstan and Alan Paul, and we chat about design. So yeah, Rita Modal, lovely person. I've been so privileged to kind of chat with them. And as, again, lovely person from Lucky Duck Games, friend of the show, Vince Vergonjon, head of the company, and also playing Chronicles of Crime 1900 last night on the stream with a bunch of lovely people in chat. It has been a lovely weekend. I'm glad to hear that you're having a good time. And Games Cupboard, you pop into their streams and they have the best hats. I'm just going to say, I will award... I know that sometimes when you give someone awards, like if you say, oh yeah, Serenity, you're the best, then that can make other people feel sad because it's like, oh, why am I not the best? So I'm not going to say that. But what I am going to say is Games Cupboard has the best hats because I don't know anyone else who's even trying, frankly. They've got like a lots of hats and you can pick which hat. And hello, Scrappy Kid. It is lovely to see you along. And thank you for following. And you are totally welcome, Games Cupboard. Do you have... So I generally ask people if it's their first time on the show about what a typical day involves. I know that it's been quite packed in the past few days few weeks, let's say, because it's been a release moment. You've been trying to build up to the release of these 2 new sets. But can I ask you, you don't need to go into every detail, but what is a typical day like for you?
Weekday, I wake up, I take my son to school, I come home and I work. Then he comes home, he has dinner, and then I just, mostly at the moment, just collapse on the sofa and watch Stargate. Weekends, he's with my ex, so I'm generally at the PC working on either some plans for future stuff, running an event, or depending on what the situation is, collapse on the sofa watching Stargate, and then in the evening watching live streams. Like I've got some DJs and load of us hang out on a Zoom together and pretend that we're in a club.
Yeah, pretending we're in a club is the closest that we're getting to that these days. So that sounds like you're desperately missing that.
Yeah, I used to go clubbing like every 2 weeks, pretty much without fail. From like, and I'd be out from 11 o'clock at night through to 8 o'clock in the morning. And yeah, I missed that a lot. It's like just being like crammed in I miss being crammed in a sweaty, dark room with like 100 people. And then walking out at the end and just be like, oh my God, I just like being dead on my 2-hour train journey home. That I miss that.
Yeah, I think that we all miss kind of whatever our main points of social connection was. And I want to say thank you very much to Losbros, friends of the show. So I'm going to actually give a quick shout out to Losbros, who's an amazing musician, does looping and plays all sorts of wind instruments and keyboard. And thank you, Losbros, for the raid. I want you to know it's appreciated. Maybe it's morning or bedtime. Either way, it's a meeting of minds. Today we're talking about Netrunner. With Serenity, we'll talk to one another. And we're talking about this game from 1993. And we'll talk about what the future might be of Netrunner. Not the future of everything, just the future of Netrunner.
Every time you say it's from 1993, I feel so old because I used to play the original as well.
Is it 1993 or am I just...
I think it might be 96.
Let me double check that because I've said that multiple times now. And if I'm wrong, then I definitely need to...
I started playing in 1998 when I was at uni, living in a little house with 4 of my friends.
I am very, very sorry. I have made a mistake on this show. It is 1996.
I still feel old because that's still 25 years ago.
And hello, Losbros. It is just super lovely and Australian. So anyway, so now we are moving on to what is quite often for some people their favorite section, where you can just be silly for a few minutes and ask anything you like, where we ask about the questionably quick questions. So the first question is, where exactly are you? What time is it? Here, I am in Glasgow. You don't have to say your exact street address. That's okay. I'm not asking you to dox yourself. But it is 10:16 a.m. Where are you, Serenity?
I am in Bedford in the UK, and it is 10:16 for me as well.
Okay, next question. Meeples, wooden meeples, or plastic figurines?
Depends on the game. If I had to pick, I would go for plastic, but there are some games that wooden meeples work better with, I think. Just like the general aesthetic of the game suits meeples.
Next question is cards or cubes, and I think I know the answer, but
yeah, cards.
Cubes does include dice, by the way, just to make it clear.
Yeah, I mean, I'm an old school role player as well, so I love both, but cards are my favorite. I have way too many thousands of them, like everywhere. Like my flat is full of them. Like you can't. I don't think you can see down there now. There's a box of prizes that are ready to go out. There's a box of prizes here. There's a box of prizes here. Like my flat is full of cards.
I believe you. I mean, you don't have to prove yourself to us. We're not like
about 10,000 cards, board game cards in this flat just from CCGs and LCGs. I have a problem.
I mean, that's the thing with CCGs. Do you not find that you have all these common cards? I mean, I like the way that when it's okay, you get one copy of these and you're actually using those cards, or what Rick Garfield did with King, Keyforge. That's the one.
Oh yeah, when you buy a deck.
Yeah, like that's the deck. You're actually going to use these cards. It's not like you've got all these extraneous things. Because with Magic, whilst it's a good game, don't get me wrong, I've got so many more cards that I don't really need, and it's like, yeah, I might use them for drafting or something, but like
this isn't even including my Magic collection. My Magic collection isn't my friend's house because he uses it. So, but I'll tell you what, Magic the Gathering commons are really good for printing out Netrunner print and play sets because you can print at home and using the Magic Commons as a card back.
That is true.
That's what Magic Commons are for. They're cheaper than lands, so yeah, just use Magic Commons.
Oh yeah, don't waste your lands. I mean, people actually want the lands. You can make decks of them. And hello to the show, Aogu Kip, who says that they really feel strongly about wooden meeples being better than plastic. But, everyone's entitled to their opinion. And that's what the show's all about. And enjoy your dinner, Laws. Thank you for listening in. I hope that you enjoyed the cooking. Next question that I like to ask is about books versus podcasts.
Books. I can't concentrate on podcasts. If it's not taking the whole of my attention, I will be like, oh yeah, I'm listening to a podcast, start doing a thing, 15 minutes have passed. What were they talking about? I don't know. I'm the same with like audiobooks as well. I just can't do them. I have to 100% focus on something, or I 0% focus on it.
That makes sense.
Like unless I'm driving, like there are a few Netrunner podcasts I listen to while I'm driving, but otherwise, right, if I'm not in a car, and I don't go anywhere nowadays, so my podcast time is very limited.
And like, because Algo Pip says, oh, it wasn't meant to be throwing shade on anybody. And like, I didn't get that impression. I don't know if you cool. So we're all good.
Yeah.
Feel the love. Like, just thank you very much for watching and keep the comments coming. And if anybody has any questionably quick questions that you want to throw in, then please get it in within the next minute or two. While we're waiting for anyone to type in something, I want to ask a question that people sometimes ask me, which is, would you rather spend a day as a pigeon or as a shark?
Shark. Oh, I don't know. Being able to fly would be cool, but so would seeing the bottom of the sea. Like, yeah, I'm going to go with shark because there's stuff you could see as a shark that, like, no person has seen, but pigeons, like, they go up, but we can go up. So I will go shark.
Like, can sharks actually go down to that depth? Don't sharks still have a limit on how low they can go?
I don't know. Either way, it would be somewhere that I don't normally get to go.
Whereas you've seen that height when you've been taking off in a plane, for example.
Yeah, and like I've seen the view from the top of a tall building when I've been on like the nearly top floor. So, but I don't get to go deep underwater. I'd go look for pirate ships.
And we've got a question from the audience, which is, what is your favorite Netrunner podcast ever?
Favorite Netrunner podcast ever? It's a tricky one, but I'm going to go with Run Last Click because I loved their combination. Serious chat about the cards and whimsical banter. Plus, like they've done a couple of live shows at the UK Gaming Expo, and they are always hilarious.
Run Last Click.
Run Last Click. They don't do Netrunner podcast anymore because the main host stopped playing after FFG lost the license. But they're back.
That must break your heart.
Yeah, I was gutted. I got interviewed for I think the second to last episode as part of like the starting off NISEI stuff. But yeah, I got to go on Run Last Click. That was like life goal achieved. So,
well, whilst you were able to do it, you actually managed to make it. So, congratulations on that. Scrappy Kid, all the way from London, asks, do you have a favorite Netrunner core?
I'm guessing that's Netrunner Corp. My favorite Netrunner Corp is Jinteki because, frankly, I like to murder people.
Wow, wow.
In the game, I like setting traps. I like the bluffing aspect, and I just love the whole. Like I had a deck for ages that I ran that. If you ran on my server, I punished you. If you didn't run on my server, I punished you. I win either way, and it's
you sound like a real sadist.
Snare is an absolute delight. That's true. If a card has an exclamation mark in Netrunner, it's a good card. That's my general thing. So Snare, Shock, Sting, all great cards.
So it's been a good few years since I played Netrunner. I can't even. I think it might have actually been the original version that I played, or it might have been just at 2012 when it had just come out. I mean, the second time from FFG, I can't remember, but so correct me if I'm using the wrong terminology, but you've got these hackers, you've got Decor, and which one do you prefer running?
Well, I mean, this is the thing about Netrunner. You've got to do both, but I prefer playing as Corp, always have done, even back to OG Netrunner. I like... So... The two sides of the game are well thought of as the corporation are setting a puzzle for the runner to solve. I like trying to make the most fiendishly difficult puzzle I can make.
I mean, yeah, I know this was meant to be questionably quick questions, but let's be a bit more questionable about the quickness. And let me ask, so when you're playing casually, you can just have one person doing the corporation and one person doing the hacker. But if you're playing on Jinteki.net, I guess you've got to have one deck of each and then you alternate to make the game fair.
So if you're just playing a casual game on Jinteki, you can just go, I want to run a Corp game. And so you set up a game with you as the Corp and someone joins and places the runner. That's fine. If you're playing as a tournament through each sides of the Swiss rounds, you play both. You play both games, and at the end of it, you've got either 0, 3, or 6 points from that round.
Yep, that makes sense. And final questionably quick questions is: do you have a board game that describes your personality the best?
That's a good question. I wasn't prepared for something this difficult at 10 in the morning. Probably. Yeah, I mean, yeah. If Netrunner, but if I can't pick Netrunner because that would be too easy, I would say Terraforming Mars because I love. I like sitting down and planning things and like preparing and like the whole engine building stuff is like one of my favorite genres of board game, and I'm also a huge God damn it, I want to live in space, nerd. So, like, terraforming Mars is just very me. Also, I get to drop meteors on my friends' farms, and that's just lovely.
Wow, so you enjoy a little bits of spite in your games?
Yeah. One of my friends, when I first taught him Warhammer 40,000, I explained to him, like, if you can't win, it just comes down to the petty acts of spite and malice. Like, sure, I've lost this game, but I'm going to kill your favorite commander. I don't care. Like, my entire army is just going to shoot this guy for acts of spite. Only got a tank left? Fine. Ram that tank across the battlefield. Something. Just go out with style.
Okay. That was a very good question. Thank you for it, Game Cupboard. And so, at this point, I am going to get a wee bit more on topic, but feel free to still comment, ask questions, and all that stuff. And let me ask about brilliant thing, what's a little thing which is brilliant? And I would like to ask specifically about Netrunner. Why is Netrunner a brilliant thing?
Okay, there's multiple reasons why I love it. So to start at the basics, it's a great game. There are choices throughout. You're very rarely in a position where you cannot win. So like when I'm playing a game, like we have this like mentor system sometimes, and someone said to me, "You're playing, like you're ahead. That's fine, but you're playing this as if how do I win? You need to play how do I not lose, because there is almost always an out for the person who's like the underdog at the time. So you very rarely get games where it's just like there is no point me playing this. I play Pokemon with my son. We go to tournaments sometimes. I played a game at one point and I could not beat this guy's deck in 1,000 games. You would never get that in Netrunner. It's really flavorful. It's like you rarely get the same game twice. So the game itself is very solid, hence the reason a lot of people love it. The other reason that I am such a huge advocate for Netrunner is because the community itself is very inclusive and very welcoming to all sorts of people. Like, it is not like if you go to some tournament games for some different games, you will walk in and there will just be like a room full of cishet white dudes all sitting there with their beards and their hats. Netrunner is not like that, because it's made a point, even back when FFG started, they made a point to encourage inclusivity and diversity. So there's been numerous interviews with one of the previous lead designers, Damon Stone, about why inclusivity is important, and he speaks way more eloquent than me about it. But it's been like a driving factor for them from the beginning. So if you look at like the original core set, you've got one white guy in there out of the three main characters. How many other games can you think back in, what did we say, in 2016 or whenever it was, 2014 when the game came back out, were that focused on diversity? And that has rewarded the game with a diverse audience that has become welcoming to new people, which in itself breeds more diversity and more people being welcome to play the game. So, like, I often say I would not be the community manager for NISEI if it did not have the community that it does, regardless of how good the game was. Like, no community is perfect. Like, we are well aware of that. But it tries, and that's the important part for me. I have friends who previously tried playing other card games, and they would turn up at events, and because they were non-binary, they'd been made to feel unwelcome, and they would play play in that tournament because they were there, but they'd never go back. They started playing Netrunner and were like, this is great. Like, no one's blinked at the fact that we use they, them pronouns, or its pronouns in one of their cases. And they've stuck around for life. Like, I don't see either of them ever quitting Netrunner.
But that is really awesome, and I think that, yeah, it was 2012, Fantasy Flight Games brought it back, and again, I'm going to bring up Colvin's name a couple of times, because Colvin is just such a strong advocate for Netrunner, and, you know, Colvin basically has 2 games that Colvin's super passionate about, and I said, oh no, Netrunner is my favorite game, and, you know, very clear on this, and pointing out, you know, that there's a superpower that's not based in America or Europe, that there's this, you know, there are these big corporations, it's not pastiches, it's not, it's representing the world almost as it could be in a fairer version. I don't know, I mean, as you say, I'm not going to start talking about other games, but it does seem like back in 2012, FFG were very well on the ball and doing lots of great things. And then I guess you've got the whole asymmetry. I mean, most CCGs, and for those, like, let's talk about what's a Netrunner. It was originally a collectible card game. You got the things randomly, and then Fantasy Flight brought it back, and then it made it a living card game, which is a thing that they technically own, and so no other game is officially a living card game, but other games can technically be a living card game in all but name. But it basically means that you get 1 copy of some cards and 3 copies of some cards. So you still have that rarity, but now eventually you are constructing your own deck. You've got a bunch of cards, and you've got to just stick to, you've got to focus on one of these corporations, or whichever corporation or whichever hacker you choose, that limits the cards that you're able to select from.
Yep.
And then you play, and one person's playing as the corporation, setting the traps, playing lots of cards face down that the other person doesn't know, whether that's a little trap where I'm going to go and that's going to mess me up, or if this is the secret victory points conditions where I'm going to go and I'm going to break down your corporation. And then you've got those mind games, and you're protecting some of them, but maybe that gets into the whole bluffing. And I know Richard Garfield is a big advocate of high luck and high strategy in poker, because talking about how luck and strategy are not a linear scale, it's a 2-dimensional thing. But kind of bringing a wee bit of that into Netrunner, which does have so much going on. And thanks for lurking, Scrappy Kid. But is there anything else that you think we really need to get into that you would say, hey, people, this is what Netrunner is, this is why it's brilliant, and this is why you would enjoy it?
It's... I would say if you're the kind of person that loves the kind of like the politics behind cyberpunk, the fighting against the large corporation, trying to make them like not wreck the world, then the politics of Netrunner is probably quite right up your street. So it's something that we're very, very keen to make sure isn't lost, because there's a lot of like every time we do anything political, we get a couple of people say, why are you bringing politics into my game? And my answer to that is, dude, you cannot have cyberpunk without politics. Otherwise, it's just, hey, cool, that dude's got a robot arm and a flying car. That's not special. Cyberpunk is at its very nature like you boil it down to its core essence, it's about two things. One of which is the fight of the individual to retain some agency in a life dominated by capitalism or some other oppressive state. The other part of it is, what does it mean to be human? Like, where is the border? Like, what can I do to myself and still be considered human? Netrunner addresses a lot of the first and a little bit of the second. I really wish we could do a bit more with the second, and maybe we will in future sets. I shall have to bug our new fiction director when they start. But yeah, so if you're political, you like complicated card games, and you want to encourage diversity, play Netrunner. You can play it for free, so give it a try.
Yeah, when you say complicated card games, I wanted to tackle two wee things that you said. Firstly, how is it encouraging diversity? And secondly, is it actually, how complicated is it?
Okay, so to encourage diversity, we are continuing FFG's work where we want to make people feel represented when they see themselves in a game. So we've had people message us and some of the writers to say, like, oh my God, I can't believe, like, I get to see myself as a Muslim woman in the game. We've had people message us going, oh my God, like, is this character of yours Filipino? And we're like, he's like part Chinese, part Filipino. And they're like, oh my God, this is like, I never see my culture represented in a game. And that gets them excited about it. And so, like, people enjoy being able to see themselves. Like, I don't play, it's for the same reason if I can create a character in a game that I'm playing, I make a character who looks like me, because I care more when I can identify with the people I see in the game. And by making sure our characters reflect people from a wide variety of cultures and treat those cultures with respect, we're actually teaching people who are not from those cultures about that. So whenever we bring out a new set in our release notes, we have pronunciation guides for words that aren't commonly spoken. So we're teaching.
When you have someone like people of Filipino descent in your game, do you always have a Filipino person to advise, to talk about, hey, this is what's correct to represent, this is what's problematic to represent, actually don't show this is just a stereotype, there's no grounding in reality?
Yeah, I mean, we always try and make a point of finding people from the cultures that we are representing to say, hey, like, this is what we want to do. Does this fit for you? I mean, it's quite interesting, because what you're actually saying is, so we want to represent your culture, but we want to represent your culture 300 years in the future. Like, there comes, like, if you were to base, for example, something now on English culture in the 1700s, you would be very, very wrong. For a start, there'd be a lot less binge drinking in the streets. But yeah, we always make sure we are as respectful as possible, and we reach out to people and talk to people of those communities.
Great, Sans, we might come back to that, the kind of whole, what goes into making one of these sets, what kind of process it goes into. Let me go back to the second thing I asked about, the complexity of the game.
So it's one of those games that is simple to learn but hard to master. So you can pick up the basic rules in your first game. You play a training game, you go, okay, I get this. This is how I make a run. This is how I get cards. This is how I win the game. This is like the mechanics of it. The tricky part comes in when you start looking at cards and you go, this card and this card, that does a cool thing. And then you get a third card, and So it's the card interactions that add the complexity. So if you are coming into Netrunner fresh, this is what we have built System Gateway for. So it is a small, limited card pool, like 73 different cards, not a huge amount to learn and to get your head around. Especially as like most of the time, you'll be playing with probably 15 or 16 sets of 2 to 3 of each card. And it's designed to be balanced. It doesn't involve any overly complicated wording. So to get in, it's not particularly daunting. There's a bit of a jump between there and standard format, which is all the cards that are currently legal to play. But this is why there is an intermediate format to kind of like ease you in. So you play Gateway, then you play Startup, then you can play Standard. And at that point, you come along to Worlds and play.
And Standard, is that everything that's been released by Project NISEI, or?
That is everything that's been released by Project NISEI and the last 3 cycles and 2 big boxes, I think, by FFG. So we are rotating out every time we release a new set or cycle from us. We will release, we will rotate 1 cycle, 1 big box.
Okay.
So we are shrinking the card pool down tiny chunks by tiny chunks because the amount that we're putting in is slightly less than the amount that's coming out. So we're trying to make it easier for people to get into the game, but without at the same time scaring off all the people that play already.
So let's talk a wee bit about the history, and I've got some images that I'm able to show. So this is from the 1996 release.
Yeah.
Wow. This is, I think it might be a fan thing. So that's what the cards looks like there. This is what the cards looks like with the FFG release. And
that is a fan card, that last one. That one.
Oh, thank you very much for correcting me. Because I just saw that this one was the one thing that I was able to all the other things are copyrighted.
But that is how they look. Someone has used the FFG template on that. So,
but then with your own templates, was there any? Do they look distinct? Or they like?
So we redesigned all of the aesthetics from the ground up when we started because we did not want to reuse any FFG assets. So all of the little glyphs you see on there look different. All of the we use a different font. Like the credit cost of each card is different. The template is different. It's all done from scratch.
And there's
inspired by the FFG stuff.
It's kind of got a bit more bleed, whereas compared to the original, it's if this is the original, you can see that this looks a wee bit more similar to other things. But no, there's definitely some gorgeous artwork. And so, firstly, what went into it and why was it resurrected? And from Brian from Tabletop Polish, before I started up, asked, why did FFG lose the license? I know we can't talk too much about that, but can you talk in what we know and how did this fan project start up?
Well, so, I mean, that's a very good question because nobody knows why why the license was not renewed. So the license was originally for a 6-year deal, which came to an end in 2018. The license was not picked up again, or an agreement could not be reached between FFG and Wizards of the Coast. no one at either company, to my knowledge, has ever talked publicly about why that is. I'm very curious.
So it might be that Wizards was asking for a lot more money. I mean, ultimately, what it's going to be is that the amount of money that Wizards was asking for, FFG considered it not worth the expense. That's what it's going to come down to.
That's the case, because ultimately the rights to a card game that has been dead for over a decade is worth a lot less than the rights to a game which has an active community of several thousand people and like big tournaments and is a live interest. So it could well be something as simple as FFG had budgeted X, which was what they paid the first time to renew the license, and Wizards went, "No, mate, I want 5 times that because I've seen how much you're making from this." The other alternative is it could be FFG. Like if you look at what's happened with some of the other FFG licenses in the meantime, like L5R, it could well be like FFG owned that. There's no licensing issues with that, but they have still cancelled the game. It could well be that their business model says we keep an LCG alive for 5 to 6 years, and that is it. That maybe it's possible they had no interest in renewing it at all. Might not fit their business model. But we'll never know because neither company will ever say anything about it.
I think, given, it's a slightly different company, obviously Z-Man as opposed to FFG, but both are owned by the Asmodee umbrella. And Z-Man recently had this statement. It sounded like sour grapes. I'm not going to get into that, but they were talking about, hey, we're not going to carry on Taj Mahal and all these old Euro games. And I kind of agree with what Ignacy Cevicek publicly said on their podcast, Board Games Insider, where it was like, yeah, these games are probably still making an income. They're probably still making some sort of money, but not enough money for a company of this magnitude, where they say, hey, Plaid Hats Games, yeah, let's separate ways. We'll just take Dead of Winter. You can have everything else because we don't care about it. All those other games, they're selling, but not selling well enough. And that's what it might come down to, that there is some sort of opportunity cost for the company.
Yeah.
And maybe at a certain point, it might be worth a smaller company doing it. It might be worth, it being a passion project, which is obviously where the fan project thing comes in. But they need to be making a certain amount of money for it to be worth anyone that they've hired, which is kind of sad. But that's the reality when, talk about corporations, eh?
Yeah, well, I mean, as our lead designer, June, just changed their name, has said repeatedly on numerous occasions, there is no game that has been made better by somebody needing to make profit from it or somebody else needing to make profit from it. So if the game designer and the people making it make some money off of it, that's fair enough. If a corporation and some shareholders need to make money from it, that impacts the decisions that can be made because they are going to expect a certain amount of profit. They're going to expect a certain amount of return on their investment. That doesn't improve the game. That limits the designer's choices. And they've said a few times that they have seen decisions made in companies that they have worked for that the designers disagreed with, but the powers that be insisted on it because they're the ones who are paying the wages at the end of the day.
And Aogu Kip says, if I recall correctly, there was a lot of speculation at the time that the acquisition of FFG by Asmodee made Wizards of the Coast less willing to extend the deal. But I can see the logic in that it might have been rooted in a need to refresh product lines. Quite possibly, it might have been a mixture of all of the above.
Yeah, with FFG owned by Asmodee and Wizards of the Coast owned by Hasbro, it could very well be parent companies both said, or one of the parent companies said, no, why are you selling a license to our direct competitor, or why are you buying a license from our direct competitor? nowhere. I mean, the fact that FFG
I mean, I
now
know
have
that.
no card games that have an organised play structure left tells me that I think it was an internal FFG decision, because they don't, all of their competitive card games are now gone. The only card games they seem to really have left is Arkham Horror, and that's
like they have very much refocused.
Yeah,
and that's the thing. It is, as you say, Asmodee. They are the shareholders, and with Board Game Arena, I've talked to people from there who are saying, yeah, things will continue, but yeah, let's not delve too much into this. What I will mention is that, yeah, I know of companies who've stopped working with Asmodee UK when Steven got bought by Asmodee, and then stopped working with Coiled Spring when that got bought by Asmodee, and then stopped working with Green Board Games Company when that got bought by Asmodee. And it's like, okay, now what distributors are left in the UK? Which is a very interesting side point, which is basically there's Spiral Galaxy, VR is the new kid on the block, and now there's one person who I'm going to have on the show like in a week or so, who's basically one person trying to set up a new thing for Hachette. Anyway, that's a completely separate discussion, but
yeah, I mean, it is very difficult to break into the market if you don't have a distribution model, and with all the distribution arms owned by the same people, I mean, this again boils down to somebody else making profit from your game. This is Asmodee going, no, we don't want to be paying other people to distribute our games. I mean, they don't need all of these companies that they are buying. But capitalism makes the games industry worse.
So let's
100% worse.
You've already talked about why it was worth resurrecting, but again, we had some questions before the show where Brian, again from Tabletop Polish, asked, I noticed the logos changed a bit. Are you still able to use the names? And we had a wee bit of a conversation before we started. So if we could get into what's changed, what's been the same. Yeah, unless you feel the need to talk about why it's worth resurrecting, which is totally fair. What was changed during the resurrection? Or whatever you want to call it. Is there
resuscitation?
Resuscitation, sure, let's go with that.
I'm going to remember that for future. That's my go-to phrase now. It wasn't resurrected, it was resuscitated. It was not pronounced dead on sea. So what was changed? So we redid all of the graphical stuff. We didn't want to steal anything from FFG's hardworking artists. They put effort into it. We very strongly believe that artists should be rewarded for what they do, which is why we will never just use art that we've downloaded from DeviantArt or Imager or wherever else artists, I don't know, I'm not an artist, wherever they put their stuff. We will always pay artists. We have a few internal artists who do pieces for us, but that is entirely voluntary. They don't have to do that. We're not strong-arming anyone. We commission large chunks of our art. So we redesigned all of the graphical stuff from scratch. We've got new card backs. The faction logos have changed, and we reworked them. So yeah, I mean, that was a large portion of the work for getting our first set out. We are a fan project in the same way that someone writing fan fiction for Star Wars can put their work on the internet for people, for the same way that any fan stuff is allowed under law. When we're selling, we're compatible with Netrunner is the way we frame it.
And people are able to get all of these things for free.
Yep.
I mean, obviously there's the cost of print. Nothing's literally free. There's always some like opportunity cost or time or whatever. But you can download these files. I've not been sent these files by you, but you've told me that yes, it's okay for me to show these on the show. And all of this amazing artwork, if you want to take it and play with it and play the game and check it out, you can do that today. You've just got to print it, and if you don't have card backs, you could potentially play it on paper. It's not going to be the best experience, but you could do that.
Yeah, so I mean, this comes back down to our choice to maintain diversity as much as possible, because diversity is not just about your gender, your sexuality, the color of your skin, etc., etc. It also boils down, like, we don't want anyone to be economically restricted from playing our games. So you can turn up to our world championship tournaments. If, like, admittedly you have to buy a ticket because it costs a lot for us to hire places, but it is subsidized. So but you can turn up to our world championship or a store championship or a regional or a nationals or whatever. If you've got, all you need is a ticket. You could turn up with just cards that you've printed in black and white on your home printer from our website and play with those decks. You do not need professionally printed cards. You don't need to have you don't need to have any official tokens or whatever. So if you turned up with a bag of pennies and some cards that you printed on the internet and sleeved in front of 1p Magic Commons, then join in. Great. We encourage that. We want people to download and play. I would rather someone downloaded and played our game for free for the rest of their life for 1,000 hours of gaming time than they never played the game. This comes down to, like, we are not in this to make money. We're a non-profit as a legal financial entity thing. I don't know. I don't deal with the legal stuff. Because none of us get paid. So I don't get any more money based on you downloading and playing with these or versus printing them off yourself. What I get is someone to play against at tournaments. That's what I want.
And I want to ask about what's the structure of Project NISEI? How was there like a bunch of people? You're the community manager. Yep. Presumably there were a bunch of people all at the same time thinking, hey, we can't let this stop. The first fan release came in just a year. I don't know exactly how many months it was after the collapse had been announced, but thinking, no, we can't let this stop. So
I think it was June. Yeah, June the year after the game ended. So the game. A brief timescale. So the announcement from FFG came out in, I think it was May, to say Netrunner is ending. We're going to do a World Championships in September. We hope you're going to be there. And there's one more box to come out. Is basically what they said. So there was at that point a load of like nerds all around the world. No, and like I spent 5 days walking around as if someone had told me my dog had been shot.
Oh.
Because like Netrunner had meant so much to me. It had got me through a messy divorce by like giving me something to do and some people to hang out with while that was all being processed. So I was like, no, don't accept this. And then some people announced that they were going to do something about it, that they wanted to do a fan-run continuation of it, that they were tentatively at the time calling Project NISEI, which is a name that stuck. Unlike many of these fan organizations that I've seen, because I've spoken to quite a few over the last 2-3 years, because every time a game gets cancelled, we get an email about it. We didn't get. Bear with me, I'm going to shut that curtain properly. There we go. We didn't have a load of people get together and say, right, we are in charge. Which I've seen quite a lot. You'll get someone go, well, I'm in charge. This is my person who is my lead designer. This is my person who does this or whatever. We had a load of people who say, we're going to set ourselves up as just like a facilitator group at the moment, just kind of like get some stuff working. But these people who you all know because they involve like world champions and like community leaders, they don't want to be involved, but they want to help. So they are going to design an organizational structure that they think works. They are then going to create job adverts and recruit for these roles. So they put up the 8 board roles, the roles being president, lead designer, lead developer, rules manager, head OP manager, EDI lead, and community manager. And who have I missed? Creative director. So they said, these are the 8 roles that we think are needed to start off. They recruited for it through like rounds of like recruitment questionnaires and then a couple of interviews. And then they just basically said, okay, you 8 are in charge, crack on. And we all went, oh, right, okay. So we started recruiting people to help us. We worked out the structure we wanted for our teams underneath each of our departments. We put out a load of recruitment adverts for it for within the community, got very, very strong levels of response the first time. I don't think there was a single role that we didn't get at least 6 people apply for. So we recruited all these people and got to work. By the time the recruitment had finished, we'd already started fleshing out ideas for our first cycle, both creatively and design-wise. And it all kind of exploded from there. And now there's 65 of us. It's one of the joys of being a volunteer org is that if you don't have time to do something, you can just find someone to do it because there's no wages budget. So like I'm not limited to 3 people in my team or whatever. I can just go, like if the lead translator, Matt, says to me, hey, I need a new translator for Spanish to help the current Spanish translator out because they're struggling. I'd just go, all right, tell me what you need to say and I'll put an advert up on the website for it. Done. Like there's no trying to get approval. There's no anything complicated like that.
Sorry, I'm getting a wee bit of feedback on your end. I don't know.
I haven't changed anything.
But thank you very much, Dan Webb Plays, for following. And yeah, I think that looking at the Instagram, it's clear that even after FFG dropped it, you had a good bit of organized play going. Would you say that it's dropped quite substantially after it became... Yeah.
No. I'd say, if anything, recently we've got more people playing than we did at the end. So the last FFG tournament was Magnum Opus, the final Worlds. That had 400 people, which was and that was the biggest event they ever had in their history. And then our Worlds, which is this one that we held in Amsterdam in 2019, we had 387 or some ridiculous number like that. In any case, it was the second biggest Netrunner World Championships that had ever been held. I ran, over the last 2 weekends, I have run store championships online. We had 28 and 32 people play, which is probably as many, if not more, than I would have got online in a tournament in 2017.
That's fantastic. And you've been working hard on bringing more people in with this new set of system gateway, the starter pack, to allow people to jump in an easier way. I would like to go back a wee bit. Again, stop me if I'm... but you talked about needing artists to be paid, and artists get paid for all the artwork that's being currently produced. That's not being done on a volunteer basis. I would like to ask, just for curiosity, if nothing else, who is being paid, who's doing it out of a sense of love? And yeah, before we get to the end of the show, I would like to try and tackle the question of, is this sustainable? How is this sustainable, and what lies in the future, if you know what I mean?
Okay, yeah. So everyone apart, as I said, everyone apart from an artist, some of the artists are volunteers. We operate on a culture of, we've slipped a couple of times. Like Gateway was already delayed, and we kept making promises we couldn't keep, and in the end, it was just like, no, we just need to knuckle down and get this out. But that is going to be the exception. If someone has something they were supposed to be doing, but they can't because they're having a bad mental health week, mate, take time off. Like, I don't even want to see you on Slack or Discord. Like, do the thing. Life comes first. We're not paying you. We do not own any of your time. Do what you need to do. And if you decide that you can't do this, let us know, and we will find someone else to take your place. So I don't know how sustainable this would be in a game that is not Netrunner, but I mean, this all boils back down to making people feel included and welcome. It makes people very passionate about the game. And when you are passionate about the game, you are willing to give up some of your time. I am thankful if someone joins us, spends 6 months working on a project, and then goes, I need my life back now. I'd be like, thank you very much. You've been an absolute superstar. Big hug. Please stay in touch. I'm not going to try and convince people to stay if they don't want to stay. I want people to donate their time and feel good about it. I don't want anyone to be stressed. As community manager, I'd think internally inside NISEI is as much the community as outside. So I make a point to people that if they ever need to vent or rant, or if they're having a bad day or they're struggling with something, that they can reach out to me. Is it sustainable long term? Will Netrunner be going in 20 years? I have no idea. I went into this thinking, if I can help keep this going for 5 more years, if I can double the lifespan of the game through my efforts, that is a success. If I can keep people enjoying the game, I win.
And it's not for everyone. I mean, it's not like everyone has to come and play Netrunner. I mean, it is a lifestyle game. It is something, any deck building game, any deck construction game, to separate it from deck building games like Dominion and whatnot. But any, let's call them deck construction game, by which I mean constructing your deck before you go into play, does ask a lot of your time. You have to look at all the cards in the formats. You have to, honestly, you can very easily be overwhelmed just by Project Gateway. I mean, that's, let alone everything else, when you're feeling, okay, I need to look at everything. And
yeah, I mean, Netrunner should probably come with a warning label, to be fair. It should say, warning, if you are the kind of person that hyper-focuses about something, be prepared. We're not going to say this is not for you, because this absolutely is for you, and that's the problem. If you don't have 5 hours a week that you would spend going, ooh, I want to play this game, ooh, I've had this idea, I want to try this out, then you probably need to take a step back and come back to us in a year or so, maybe when your life is more relaxed and a bit more free, or You can play casual, but not if you are the kind of person that does hyper focus on things. Like I have one of my best friends, the guy that I used to play Netrunner with back in my uni days. He lives about 20 minutes down the road. He comes like outside pandemic times. He comes around my house every Thursday, and we just jam a couple of games in the evening before he goes home. While his missus is at a sewing club, just because he doesn't want to rattle around an empty house. And outside of that 2-3 hour block, he probably thinks about Netrunner for about half an hour a week. Just be like, oh, what games am I going to play when I go and see Ren this? What decks am I going to play when I go and see Ren this week? I might play something like that. A quick little build on his phone. Then when he gets here, pulls the cards out of his binders, plays the decks, puts the cards away, drives home, doesn't think about it again until next Thursday. It absolutely is possible. However, you then get people like me who go, ooh, this is an interesting game. I'm going to spend 30 hours reading about a weird niche interaction between two cards and trying to build a weird janky deck around it. And then I'll jam 50 games on Jinteki. So, yeah, you're either lifestyle or casual. There is no middle ground.
And a quick good morning to Rob Harper. I'll be recapping some of this, but it's been a fantastic conversation, and we've been just talking about how Netrunner came to be. Well, the new resuscitation, as we decided to call it, of Netrunner. We didn't say that NBN and Jinteki, those names specifically have to be used for the game to work, because for it to be compatible with FFG's iteration, it has to be there as part of the game, and that is going to carry on until ad infinitum. Basically, if this fan project is going in 50 years, let's imagine those things would still have to be part of the game.
I think probably if this is still going in 10 years, it might be worth at that point us considering a reboot. Like start a 3.0 over from scratch, because I know that there are a few rules quirks that our rules team wish weren't in effect, and there's a few things around that kind of limit stuff. But I said that's a big project, and right now we're just focused on getting as many people enjoying as many games as we can.
So if we call 1996 Netrunner and 2012 Netrunner 2.0, this could be this is still Netrunner 2.0 in terms of the rules framework, but maybe 2.1 because of all the changed frames and everything.
Yeah, I mean, there has been some rules tweaks because there's a joke in various parts of the Netrunner community that if you wanted to know the details on a rules interaction, you had to go and search on the lead designer's Twitter.
Sounds
because people would tweet him questions and he would reply with an answer about the rules. And those rules were not always internally consistent. So there have been some various change and tweaks. So this is probably 2.3, I'd say. Like,
I mean, have you considered having a separate rules manager to the designer and developer?
We have a separate rules manager. Yeah.
Okay, there is a separate. Okay.
Yeah. So I mean, that's part of our process flow for designing new cards. So you have at the beginning, you've got design and creative sit down and go, okay, what's the framework of this? Where are we setting this? This next set, etc., etc. Design then go away and make some cards. They give it to dev. Dev look at it and go, well, this is madness. Tweak some numbers, pass it on to playtesters, iterate a few times, and then they pass it on to rules, who will be watching over throughout the whole process. And if they see anything that's like a mechanic that is a problem, they will then go, this has these serious interactions. We need to either, one, change the wording, or two, if we can't work a way of doing that, drop the card and start it again from scratch. So, yeah, we have a rules team that are very heavily embedded in the whole process. In fact, our rules manager, Jade, also works on the design team as a part-time basis.
And again, all of this in theory should be part-time because these people also have their own jobs. This is just volunteering your life. But a lot of, it sounds like for you at least, this is a job that takes as much time essentially as your full-time job.
I'd say it depends on the time of year. So during release season, I would regularly be, and this is the same for Spencer, who's like, their role title was media pipeline coordinator. We did discuss giving them a better job title last week, and I need to change that. I can't remember what we talked about, but both of us were quite regularly staying up until like 2, 3 in the morning our time, getting stuff done, then going to bed for 4 hours, then getting up, going to work. But normally no. Normally, I'd say I probably do 2, 3 hours a night worth of NISEI work. A little bit more maybe at the weekends. So it's a half-time, like a part-time job that I do on top.
Okay, I'm going to rattle through some of these questions that I had in the private chats here. So firstly, on social media, specifically Instagram, there's not that much going on. Is this, I mean, it sounds like a lot of this stuff could just be explained away by saying, well, we are all volunteers, we can only do so much. But it's...
there's a very good reason why we don't put much on Instagram. I keep forgetting it exists. I don't even use my personal Instagram. Like maybe once every 2 months, I'll log on to Instagram because I want to use a filter and it's easier through Instagram than it is through my camera. But aside from that, like I forget it exists. And there's not a lot to show off, to be honest, on Instagram. Instagram is generally a very visual medium.
But you've got all this card art. I mean...
But the card art we can't show until it's ready. I mean, yeah, we probably could have done something over spoiler season to show off some of these bits. That's probably that's our last post, right?
Yeah.
Around the BLM event. Yeah.
From the middle of last year.
Yeah, it's because we haven't released anything since then. And you know what? That's a fair point. What we should probably do next time we do a spoiler season release is to, as we show off the cards, put the cards up on Instagram. Because yes, the art is bloody gorgeous. That is one of my favorite pieces of art. Like I ran a regional specifically to make sure that I got hold of the TO's copy of the playmat last year because I just love it.
The tournament organizer for anyone unfamiliar with the acronym. And but even after release, we can still have stories about the cards and hey, this is the card, just show some old cards. But I do get it, when COVID wasn't a thing, you were able to celebrate all that was going on with, yeah, this amazing event that you ran. But then afterwards, it was like, okay, what do we actually show off?
Yeah, so we're predominantly focused on Twitter in terms of social media platforms. We do some on Facebook as well. And honestly, this just boils down to the fact that those of us who work on the social media side, generally that's the platforms we use in our day-to-day personal lives as well. So I mean,
ultimately, if someone wants to volunteer to help you put stuff up on Instagram, then they can apply.
Yeah, I mean, this boils down to we forget and we don't have a lot of time. Like there are various jobs that don't get done that need to get done. For example, I need to start putting some more designs up on our Redbubble store because we also sell T-shirts. As you can see there, we've got the nice Shaper logo in the trans flag colours and then transhumanist, because it's a lovely little inside joke for, like, there's a character who is a Shaper who is a transhuman. So. But we have like a whole folder full of designs that I just haven't got around to putting up on Redbubble yet.
We've already talked about, the license, how, FFG and Wizards couldn't have an agreement, and it's like this fan project that's been picked up, and you've basically, the thing that brought you all together was a love of the game.
Yeah.
And let me move on to what have been some of the tactics in keeping this community friendly. How do you make sure that people aren't jerks, that everyone feels welcomed? Do you have a code of conduct at your events? What, and how do you make sure that everything's approachable?
So one of the first things that our EDI lead did after we started was begin working on a code of conduct. I sent them a couple of samples from groups that I'm involved in elsewhere, and they took another one from, I can't remember it now, Feminist Geek, perhaps, a website. They have a code of conduct anyway. So we kind of like borrowed our favorite bits from each, put them all together, and like that is enforced at our events, and we expect our tournament organizers to enforce it at our event. So we also expect our players to call out bad behavior. So if someone turns up to an event and is being sexist, then, be an ally, call it out. Don't just sit there because you're a dude and, it don't affect me. It does. If you want people to turn up to play games with you, you'll call that out. It's very, very rarely needed, to be honest, because of the work that we've built on that FFG did. Generally speaking, the people that come to Netrunner tournaments are the kind of people that know how to behave at these events.
Yeah, I keep hearing this admiration and love for the community management of FFG and the representation, and the way that, frankly, if you've got good representation in your game, that's going to turn away someone who's advocating, someone who is an actual Nazi isn't going to play a game with the representation of Netrunner.
No, there was an issue at one point with the Netrunner subreddit, because there were some right-wing leaning borderline fascist arseholes in there, but it was made very clear to them by, I didn't even have to get involved. It was made very clear to them by the rest of the community that they were not welcome. Because the community itself, because a lot of the community comes from a diverse swathe of people, and even if they are themselves white cis het dudes, they have made enough friends through Netrunner who have mentioned to them how important it is to feel represented, that the ones that have stuck around get it. And that's the and I'll reiterate again, there is no community that is perfect. There are arseholes in every group, no matter how hard you try to weed them out. But Netrunner does have one of the best communities that I have ever been part of in my entire life.
Wow. That is quite the commendation.
Yeah, and it is reflected in the diverse makeup of the people you'll meet in there. NISEI, if you look at NISEI as a group, we've been referred to as a queer anarchist group cyber squatting on an IP, which is my favorite description of anything I've ever been involved in, to be honest, because it makes us sound a lot more cooler than we are. We're a bunch of nerds who make a game. But of the 60 people in NISEI, there are 8 people, maybe 9, who are either trans or otherwise gender non-conforming, or not cis, don't know where they fit. They're still working that out. But the Netrunner community itself is a great place for people to come out. NISEI and then the rest of the UK Netrunner community were the first people, aside from one of my girlfriends, that I told about me being trans, because I knew that they would be understanding and happy for me, and that there wouldn't be any dickheads. And that is like I don't think I can imagine another group elsewhere there wouldn't be someone being an arse.
No, that's really great to hear. And now Jay from 3 Minute Board Games asked a question about how you manage power creep in new cards and sets. I know that there's been a lot of talk by other designers about a swinging pendulum, that some sets you make these wee cards better, some sets you make these cards better, so it's like kind of power shift, so you've got, and you need to be willing to make strictly worse cards, otherwise there will always be power creep.
Yeah, so that is we've released an article this year talking about a new card that we were releasing, and the article made a point that this card is not as good as this card we released in this previous set. However, if it was better, it would be broken. Like, we have on purpose made a card that you won't pick if you've got a choice between these two options. Because at some point, that card will rotate and this card will be left. But sometimes this might not be the best choice for you. You might need a cheaper option, so you might go for this.
And when you're constructing your deck, there's a limit on how many of each card you can have. Is it still 3?
Yes, still 3. So, but I mean, you wouldn't want more than 3 of these anyway. But if, for example, this was something that breaks sentry types of ice for the criminal faction, they have a very efficient sentry breaker called Bagolta that came out as part of the Ashes cycle. However, for factions that aren't criminal, that is 4 influence to import. You generally only have 15. So if you wanted 3 copies of it, all of a sudden that's like 12 of your 15 influence used up. So if you want an efficient breaker, but you don't want to pay 4 influence for it, you might bring in this other one, for example. And as I said, like at some point, Bagolta will rotate. And this other card is also legal in gateway only format. So you're right. Like, the people that you've talked to previously are correct. You have to be willing to make an actually worse card, because if you constantly make stuff that's better, then yeah, you get power creep. We also have,
and this rotation. It sounds like this is the key thing that's going to allow it to survive. That you've got I don't know exactly how many years worth of sets it's going to be, like 4 sets. 4 years,
it depends on how quickly. So we do the rotation every time we bring out a set. Now, this last set took us 15 months. The next set will not take us 15 months. The next set is already in playtest, like version 9.
Actually, can I talk about that a wee bit? Because you had a bunch of things in 2019, then you had something just within the past couple of months. And is that basically because 2020 was a terrible year for everyone and everyone was a bit low on energy?
Yeah, so there's a multitude of factors. The main one being COVID sucked, basically. So we also had a few people, and now like partially this is related to COVID, but when you have people who are in leadership positions say, I need to take a break now, like I can't keep doing this because I need to focus on my main life. Again, it boils down to what I was saying earlier on. Like, we don't want anyone to push themselves too hard with this. So when we had some people say, right, okay, I need to quit for personal reasons, not anything to do with NISEI, but I need to quit for personal reasons. And one of our mistakes that we had made is we'd not firmly put in kind of like a second in command role, someone who could step into those positions. We also hadn't got to the point where we were doing regular check-ins. So if someone has decided to leave, but they don't tell us for 3 months, then you get the point where, oh, right, well, we now need to recruit a replacement. That's going to take a month. So effectively, this team's had no leadership for 4 months.
Wow.
So there was some process and some internal issues that we have.
It sounds like you're in a much better place, but this has been something that you've had to learn along the way. Because if you are going to, frankly, if something comes 15 months late, it's not a year late. It's not like people expected that every 3 months. But if it takes over a year for the next set to come out, so be it. Even if people want it to be maybe every 9 months, ideally. I don't know what would be the ideal, but the point is that by saying, you know what, even if it took 2 years, frankly, then at least it's going to continue, because this seems very much like a long-term thing. You want to have people playing it not today, not tomorrow. Well, yes, obviously you want people playing it today and tomorrow, but also in 5 years' time.
Yeah, I mean, that's another reason for delays, because with this being a intro product or a starting point product for people, so the whole point was that we were making cards that we wanted to see in proper competitive play as well as just people learning. We had to get this right. Like there is no do-overs on System Gateway. If System Gateway had been bad, then we would have had a load of people try the game and then hate it. So combination COVID, change in leadership, and wanting to get it as good as we could possibly get are the reasons why it took so long. Now, we originally said it was going to be out in June last year. Then we said, oh, you know what? That's not happening. It's going to be December. And then December rolled around and we were like, you know what, realistically, this is not going to be December either, is it? Q1. And we made Q1 by 3 days. Because I said at one point, I was like, right, okay. We said we are not delaying this a third time. But so this has now caused some other internal process changes at our end, because this getting it out in Q1 meant that not all of the translations were done in time for release. So now I do not announce a release date until the product is complete. At least the English language version, because in the time it takes me to go from announcing release to preparing and doing the release, that buys our translation team, who are also volunteers. Like, this is stuff they're doing in their spare time, and they did a lot of work very quickly for this in 7 different languages that then all need to go through layout again. But that 3-month period means that the translation team had time to do their job properly.
But that sounds like it's inevitable that you're going to continue learning, and you're going to hopefully, as the years go on, continue improving the systems that you have in place. And I really appreciate how you are mindful of everyone being a volunteer. And it sounds like the rules, people working out rules, people working out cards, people working out flavor text, all of these people are volunteers and doing it entirely for passion.
Yeah, I mean, some of us have multiple hats. So, for example, some of the flavor text was me. Because it's one of those things that's really interesting and fun to do. So there's like 6 of us sitting on a separate Discord, like me, Calvin, and a few of the others, like coming up with this flavor text stuff. And there's a lot of the lessons that we are learning are lessons that you can learn nowhere else but a volunteer organization, because the situations just do not apply to your day job. So, like, I've done some project management in my day job, and there has been some things come up that I've been like, oh my God, never ever had that happen before. Because it's just not a situation you get in a capitalist environment.
Can you give an example?
Yeah, so for example, if you're at work and you've got a job to do by a deadline, you can't really turn around to your boss and go, I'm sorry, boss, I'm having a really bad month. I just need to step away and decompress and not do it without having to go through the whole go to the doctor, get signed off sick, constantly be worried that you're going to lose your job because of stupid Bradford factors or whatever that your evil HR people do. So like,
because people aren't motivated extrinsically, it's an intrinsic reward because you love the work that you're doing.
Yeah, I mean, we give people physical rewards. So, for example, we did a playmat and sent it to everyone in NISEI that is only available to people in NISEI, and like we send everyone copies of all the prizes and stuff like that. So we reward people, but not with anything that has any actual real financial value. But just little tokens to say thank you very much. We appreciate what you do.
And hope you had a good run, Scrappy Kids. Yeah, this is it. Like when, sorry, I don't know if this is too egocentric to build the analogy to this volunteer thing of working for Project NISEI with some people who sometimes when I'm watching something, it's, oh, do you have to keep on watching? And no, it's like, you know, you're there giving your time, and if you felt it was interesting, go back on YouTube. The reason that I put it up on YouTube is so that, you know, maybe you want to watch it on double speed or whatever. I'm the kind of person who I've started looking out for a podcast app that might help me go above double speed, because definitely there's a couple of things where, yeah, that person's speaking really slowly, and even at double speed, that's still not quite fast enough. But yeah, like we talked about how Project NISEI has been approached even by other people saying, how can we do this? And people looking to you for guidance. And this seems like potentially the way that it can be done. And
yeah, so I mean, I've had Discord calls with probably 8 or 9 people at this point now, including several people from L5R community who are just like, we don't want our game to die. You lot are doing cool stuff. How do we do what you did?
Can I just actually talk about VTES, Vampire's Eternal Struggle?
Yeah.
Like, so Mike, I actually know Mike Nod. I wish I could. I don't know if you've spoken to Mike Nod or like the VTES community much.
I haven't, but I know that various people within NISEI did. The same with the people who run the Decipher Star Wars CCG, and the people that do the old Star Trek one from like 2002 or whatever it is. Yeah, we reached out to them and were like, what can you tell us? Any advice? We want to do the same thing. So, but we're also very vocal and recent. So I think a lot of people won't necessarily have heard about the VTES, Star Trek or Star Wars groups, because they're not so much growing their player base as just keeping it going. There will always be new people joining, sure, but like the last time I checked, they hadn't made any particular effort to recruit new people. And which, let's be fair, if your game is still going after 20 years without an active attempt to recruit new people, fair play, you're doing a bang up job at keeping the existing people involved, because that means your churn is just like negligible if you're still going after 20 years. We, however, want to grow the game. We want to get this like as big or bigger than it ever has been. We want to make FFG regret not keeping that license.
Yeah, so 2 points from chat. Like, firstly, not to make this about VTES, but yeah, like any of these games, like any of these fan projects, if you want to engage with them, there will be people who are like, yes, please join us. And like, there will be so many people. So like, put that up on Twitter. I'll connect you with Mike Noss if you want. But
I I really want to play VTES as well because I've never had the chance. I didn't find out about it until after it had been cancelled, but I want to. I've been told so many good things about the game. I want to try it, but I don't have anyone around me to play it with.
Okay, before we get to Dan Webb Plays, are you happy to go over Rob's question here? I don't know if you talked about this, but how do these community projects fit with designer rights? It's notable that Scarfield made both Netrunner and VTES, and for sure, yeah, Godfather Sons.
Is there a card game out there he did not make? Is the question.
The parents of CCGs.
I like to think that he must be like, and then the Discworld books, Leonard de Quirm, like he just wakes up in the morning and he's like doodled like the stuff for a catapult like on his bed sheets. And I'm pretty sure that Richard Garfield wakes up to find that he's just designed a new game in his sleep because that's the only explanation. The man's just like, every night when he goes to bed, he wipes the chalkboard walls down so that he's got room to write the new game he invents overnight in his sleep. So, I mean, we are like ultimately a fan project. I don't know. I think VTES ended up buying the license, which would be cool. But yeah, we're a fan project. So we fit under fan works in the same way that fan fiction, stuff like that does.
So it's something that we, at some point, I should actually get Mike to talk about VTES specifically, because there's clear, for me, it's actually really interesting when you dig down into what's going on and how these things can be maintained. And the other question was about the startup format, and specifically, yeah, can you explain this project to bring in new people?
Okay, so this startup is on new intermediate format. So you begin with Gateway, that introduces you to the game mechanics and the core concept of deck building, because when you buy the starter pack is just the dual decks and then a couple of extra cards to bring in a few extra rules. There is then a deck building pack that you can get for Gateway that brings you up, adds a load more new cards and brings in brings you up to 3 of everything in there. So if you buy the Gateway complete bundle, you get 3 of every card. That introduces you to deck building. Startup being the next step from there, which is system gateway, system update, which is a load of rotated cards that we think are good for the game. It's important that it's important for them to be around. So system update is kind of like a retro pack that is legal in all formats. And then Ashes, our previous cycle, which includes Downfall and Uprising sets. So those 4 products combined make the startup format, which is all available through our store. So there is no, like, we know some people have really struggled to find old packs for playing in standard. So startup will only ever be our stuff. You will always be able to buy it from our sites or download it and print them off and play them for free from home. And it's a good, it's like the shallow end of the big pool. If you want to take as a swimming analogy. So you've learned to swim in the baby pool. You've managed to do a length without touching the side. And the swimming teacher has given you a clap and sent you off to the big pool. And you get in the big pool, but the shallow end. So it's not scary, but the pool's bigger now, it's wider, there's much more room to play, and that's where the startup format fits.
So it's very much about guiding people into the wide world and pulling people into, whoa, look at all these amazing cards and all these amazing possibilities?
Yeah, so there's somewhere about in the full standard format, I think there's somewhere around about 1,200 legal cards at the moment, which is a lot. Like, if you wouldn't want to go from a core set style experience like you get with Gateway into that, you'll get overwhelmed, and there's a lot to it. So that's why Startup is around. So it gives you an opportunity. You will still get surprises because there will still be people playing cards that you might not have noticed before, but it's not going to be a case where you don't know 90% of somebody's deck.
Do you want to talk about the utility of pre-constructed decks at all? Like, how do those fit into the plan?
So we don't really do pre-constructed decks outside of the Gateway experience. There is, like, the Gateway starter pack is in effect a pre-constructed set of decks that you could just buy, and then you could play them just with your mate whenever they came around. It would cost you like.
And there's one for each faction.
That's Gateway has starter set doesn't have one for each faction. When you add in the deck building pack, we have then 7 decks that we say, okay, if you just want a simple deck, here they are. You don't need to do any deck building. You can just play these if you want. But the fun in Netrunner is coming up with your own decks, so we encourage people to do that. If you think about it, like on a Magic point of view, people might buy a Magic starter deck if they want to build a deck around a certain theme. They're then going to change it, but they buy that because it comes with 4 each of certain key cards that they want, and they know they're going to get this other card in it. That's a function of the artificial scarcity.
But there are people who definitely buy maybe 2, maybe 4 pre-constructed decks for another game, and then they're like, okay, this is enough for me, and I just play this every so often, and that's what I'm going to get up to.
I mean, you can do that with Netrunner for sure, with the basic decks. In fact, we've got them all on Jinteki now to make it easier for people, because obviously there's no real in-person play at the moment unless you're playing with a friend. So we publish all of these decks on Netrunner DB and on Jinteki, so people can just go in and just go, I just want a quick startup game. I did it myself yesterday. There was someone on there wanting a beginner game in startup format, and I was like, well, I don't have any of I haven't made any of my own startup decks yet. So I'll just play with one of the ones that we preloaded onto the site. It's not going to be like the best deck in the world. It's not going to break the format, but that's what you want for a beginner game. Like, I don't want to come in there and kick someone's ass with something unfair. That's not nice. That would not be a good look for the community manager to come in and start.
I mean, within the play of the game, though, there's a lot of expression of the self, if you know what I mean. And there's a lot of strategic points at which you can say, oh, yeah, actually, in retrospect, I did that thing badly. So some communities for other games might call it piloting the deck. There's a lot of skill and enjoyment value of that. I would like to, before we finish, talk a wee bit about, the future. We've talked all about, okay, if we get to 10 years' time, let's say in, what would that be, 2028? So like 7 more years, you might do some sorts of reboots, maybe actually take away all of these words and just do a whole new thing, or maybe what?
Yeah, we're not planning that far ahead, to be frank. What we do have planned is our next 3 or 4 releases. I mean, sure, some of them are still in the pencil sketch. This is kind of vaguely what we want to do with them stage, but we are switching to a better pipeline for products. So the issues we had around our first set was stuff went from design to dev to rules to creative, and we didn't have it like a proper production line. So, but that's something we're going on to now. We're getting better at now. So our next set is already in version 9 of development. So that's with the playtesters at the moment. This is pretty much just tiny little balancing issues at this point.
For sure.
The set after that is already in design, so that as soon as the set codename Bash is finished in development and moves on to rules, they can take a little break, because again, when volunteers, and then they can get cracking with the next one, and we can pass it. If once we get into a proper production line where stuff moves from step to step to step to step, that should speed up our release cycle a lot faster than it has currently been.
That makes lots of sense, and thank you for the kind words there, Scrappy Kid. I'm very happy to read that. I would like to ask about bringing people in, because this is presumably for playtesting, for checking how is the play balance at the end. You're bringing people in from the community. Now, how do you balance the desire to have as many playtesters as possible with the desire to have some sort of sense of excitement and surprise as these new cards are being revealed?
I mean, that's a very good question. To be honest, I mostly leave that up to the lead developer. If David tells me they need more playtesters, I shout for more playtesters to come and sign up. If he tells me that they've got enough, I stop shouting. That's I don't know how they balance it, but it does seem to work, because there was a lot of people that I've when new cards have come out, I've been like, "You're not a playtester? I could have sworn you were a playtester." And they're like, "No, I don't want to be a playtester." And so I'm like, okay, fine. So there are judging by the community reaction to spoiler season. It looks like we have I don't know how we have made
it. Feels very self-selecting, like those people who are going to benefit. It requires people to have the self-awareness to say, you know what, I get a lot of joy from the surprise. I don't want to be involved with the community in that way. Not involved in the creation in that way. Conversely, there's people who are like, yeah, I would want, if I were part of anything, I'd be like, yeah, I want to tinker, I want to house rule, I want to chuck in a design and see what happens. And people have to have that self-awareness of what's going to be more fun for them.
Yeah, I don't play test. I don't even look at the designs until people tell me that, okay, this is done, it's 100% final. At that point, me and one of my team, Mike, we go in and we go, okay, right, let's chop the cards up into blocks and work out what we're going to give to the community streamers to spoil on theirs and what we're keeping for internal articles. That's the first time I've seen cards, and then my brain forgets them because I don't recall data from spreadsheets very well. And then we release the articles, and that's generally when I've properly seen the card first. Is like when I'm reading the article that we've had written. So that way I can maintain the same level of hype as the community, because I want to be excited along with them. I like it. I love it. That's what maintains me. That's how I can keep up with 4 hours of sleep every night for 4 weeks during community month. During spoiler month, because I'm maintaining that level of hype. If I'd seen the card 6 months earlier, then I wouldn't be able to do it. I'd be asleep.
Really sorry about keeping you so long. Hopefully, I don't know if you're in a rush, but there's a couple of questions. They just kind of keep coming into my head. So I really want to ask about the money aspects of selling things, because you have to make money in order to run these tournaments, in order to keep the servers going, in order to pay the artists. And so, can you talk as much as you're willing about that, firstly?
Sure. So we have four main expenditure categories. One, art, easily the biggest one by a country mile. Secondly, hosting tournaments. There are some, like at UK Games Expo, where they let us have the space for free because people are buying tickets from them, so they'll make the money there, because you can't enter the Games Expo without an expo ticket. Infrastructure stuff like our web hosts. We've got some cloud storage that we pay for, just like our email provider, etc. And the other one is organized play prizes. Now, to balance that out, we have some good sources of income, the first of which is selling the cards. So if you buy cards from us from Drive-Thru Cards or Make Playing Cards, then we get a little bit of a cut. There is our Patreon. We are currently pulling in like a very nice chunk on Patreon, which funds a lot of our art and helps subsidize the world's tickets. And the other one is selling organized play kits. So a good chunk of our art is funded by our initial kickoff period, because obviously we couldn't sell a product to make the money to buy the art until we had the art. So to get that going, we released an organized play kit within a couple of months of starting, and a lot of people bought that just for to either support the community or because the mat in it was sweet. Like, people bought this, like, people were paying us money. They're like, I want that mat. I don't care about any of the cards in it. I want that mat. And I don't want to risk having to win a tournament to get it. Just going to buy it myself. So that's our three main incomes and our four main outgoings.
That makes a lot of sense. And with organized play, do you see it as the ticket prices have to, minus a wee subsidy from the Patreon, the ticket prices have to cover the event itself?
We sell the tickets for as cheaply as we can. It's a question of, okay, this was the thing going into Worlds, is that we had no idea how many people were going to turn up, because we'd never run a Worlds ourselves. There'd never been one held in the Netherlands at all, or even Europe at all. Even the European Championships that had been run under FFG had been run in Birmingham in the UK. So we had no idea how mainland Europe was going to do. So we priced it knowing that we were probably going to lose a good chunk of money on this. Now, thankfully, because of the number of tickets sold, we did not lose as much as we thought we were going to. But that's fine. We don't want to price people out. As I said before, we're trying to be as economically inclusive as we can. And if that involves subsidizing tickets, I see there's 3 members of NISEI sat there in that photo.
And that, just in case someone doesn't read the caption, that's after the tournament, playing some more. That's not empty tables because it was badly attended. That's because it's after the thing finished.
Yeah, that was actually at UK Games Expo rather than Worlds. And that is our, that last photo was our lead translator, our, at the time, European organised play coordinator, and our online organised play coordinator just jamming some games.
I mean, you keep coming back to the joy of it. One suggestion that I wanted to make, I know completely unsolicited, a lot of Nordic LARPs do a system where you can buy a ticket, or you can spend more than full price on a ticket. And if you spend more than full price on a ticket, you're basically allowing someone else to get a subsidized ticket. So it's almost allowing people to self-select. If you're on a tight budget, if money matters for you, you get one of the subsidized tickets. If you are, okay, feel able to buy this, you buy the normal price. If you feel, okay, you know what, actually I want to give a wee bit more back, then you not only buy the ticket, but you buy the point at which you can donate one essentially to someone else.
That's a nice idea, and something that I will bring up with OP once we get to the point where we're planning in-person events again. Unfortunately, the big kicker for our events is often travel and accommodation, for world championships anyway, which is one of the reasons you try and make the ticket price. But that, if we can wipe out the ticket price for some people who otherwise wouldn't be, like if you could afford the hotel and the travel, but the ticket price just put it a little bit above it, then yeah, that's a really great idea. That might be something we can do.
That's a fair point. With no matter what you do, there is always going to be this base level cost that.
Yeah, we try and like we had a deal set up for last year. We were planning to run Worlds in Toronto, and we had a deal with this hotel that we would, like, people who are attending the event would get cheap hotel rooms. We will obviously continue to try and do that as much as possible. Put people in touch with being like, if you're looking for a group of people to stay with in an Airbnb or whatever, then, you know, post in this Reddit thread or whatever. Unfortunately, we have yet to find any way of doing a deal with airlines.
Yeah.
But we can help people carpool. If people want to carpool.
It feels like the dream would be to get it to be as popular as one of the currently living CCGs, at which point, you know, a store helps with organized play, but then, you know, they've got to survive financially. And at that point, it's like, well, now you have to be having margins where you're able to basically... Yeah, I don't know if there would be a way to do direct sales with certain stores around the place to make it financially viable for those stores to have organized play. There's
been some some stores email me actually asking how they can buy retail kits to sell Gateway. It's something I'm looking into, although to be fair, it's mostly something I'm trying to look into, rarely finding the time, but have a note when we recruit our new production coordinator to pass it to the production coordinator to look at.
That is the thing. So if anyone is, and Algukip, who I assume is just here specifically for this one interview, and it's lovely to have you here. Anyone who's like, you know what, I am willing, I've got the time, I've got the energy, then I guess there's openings for people to help take on this sort of stuff, this sort of organization.
Yeah, I mean, the note about the specialty face-to-face seats for on-plane jamming is like, plane runner is something that people joke about, and this is like but basically what you do is you deal your starting hand, and then you have a look and you compare and you work out who you think you would have won based on the starting hand. Well, that's a really good hand. Oh, yeah.
Oh.
Either that, or you play decks that just do not involve a lot of cards being installed. We're just going fast and loose and quick. This is the plan.
And again, thank you so much for giving me your time. And if anyone has any burning questions, now is an opportunity to get them in. The last question that I wanted to ask, which is about the cohesiveness of the vision. Because you've got all these volunteers working together, everyone wants to chip in something. And when you've got the lead designer who's... Yeah, how do you ensure that there is a cohesiveness of vision for each set, that each... Sorry, I forgot the name of the release, the cycle. That each cycle is distinct and it brings something new. Do you know what I mean?
So this is something that gets kind of like done at the beginning of the prep. So the creative director or whoever is creative lead on that set will sit down with the design manager or whoever is design lead on that set. It's not always the head of department. So, for example, one of our future sets, is the design lead is someone else who the design manager has said, I want to give this person a go at taking point on the set. And we're like, yeah, great, cool. Let's get them the experience doing this kind of stuff. But they will come up with a document that says, okay, this is the creative theme of the set. This is the design theme. This is the kind of mechanics that we want to introduce. And then everybody involved in the set has that document to work from. They've got that as a reference guide that this set, codename Bashes, actual name secret, is set here. It's got these are our characters in it. This is what the 4 corporations are up to in this environment. So everyone's singing from the same sheet is the plan. But the important part is they've got that document to go back and refer to. They don't have to, constantly be asking, hey, does this work with your vision? Does this work with your vision? My vision's on a bit of paper.
That makes lots of sense. And again, thank you so much. It's been a fantastic show. I want to bring up my recap and wrap up banner. So we have talked about Netrunner and running Netrunner tournaments, enjoying things on gentechie.net. It was, by the way, if anyone wonders, it was a wee bit too much for my parents, but I might see if they can go with the simplified version that's suggested in the rules. But anyway, but then we talked about being a shark, that you love being a shark. We talked about Run Last Click being your favorite podcast, about how you're a very spiteful player. Like, I don't know why these are all the highlights. It comes off as it. About loving the ability to win no matter what. You're never fully beaten down in Netrunner. The variety, the mind games, about politics, and to paraphrase Skunk and Nancy, everything's bleeping political. And about the individuals battling against the corporations, against the system, and about the nature of what humanity itself is. About trying to get together all these people. Some of the titles I wrote down, but you'll have to remind me of the others because you rattled off through them quite quickly. The president, the head designer, head developer, creative director, organized play community person, community manager,
EDR and creative director and rules manager.
Rules manager, that's the one. And we talked about caring about folk because everyone here is doing it because they love the game. But at the same time, you don't want those people to give too much of themselves just because they care. You want to remind themselves that, hey, you do have a life and we understand that. And you have to have systems in place, setting up systems about having a regular check-in, making sure that there is a second in charge for each of these roles so that no one is indispensable. Because in being indispensable, it might but that's not good for any structure. And at a certain point, if you feel like, oh my gosh, I'm having a terrible day, you want someone else to be able to step in to maybe take a bit more of the fore. And eventually, if you have to be in a situation where you're saying, look, I need to leave, I'm having this, let's imagine someone's having a breakdown for whatever reason, or something terrible happens in their life. You want them to be able to say, I need to step away. And for them to not have this internal crisis that, hey, by stepping away, I'm leaving everyone else in turmoil because they just can't replace me. So it feels really important to be doing that, not just for the safety and health of Project NISEI, but also for the safety and health of the individuals. We talked about, the passion that drives people, having a code of conduct, about trying to bring new people in, about keeping the secrets and the excitements going, sometimes not looking at things, even though, Serenity clearly could. You choose to withhold that, and the fact that it's self-selecting which people become playtesters, which people don't. Talking about money, about the Patreon, the card sales, the organized play tickets, but Of course, again, all of these things are, well, the cards are available for free. You can just go onto the website. You can just download that. And yes, there are costs involved in, printing the cards, but that's always going to be paying for itself because it's print on demand plus a certain amount. But in getting the original art, in running the tournaments, in the prizes for the tournaments, but in just keeping it going, all the infrastructure, all the mailing lists, all the web hosting, and all of these things. And so there does need to be a certain, and congratulations on what seems to be a really, I use the word professional in terms of well-organized, let's use that phrase, a really well-organized system, and making sure there are systems in place for having a cohesive vision. And that is what we talked about, because within Netrunner, there is so much going on within any single game. And I think this is the key thing, that it's been a delight, mainly because it is a unique story. It's not just like, hey, here's another party game that sold a couple of 100,000 copies. It's not like, hey, here, it is something that's captured people's imagination, that people at Fantasy Flight Games, for whatever reason, decided this is worth bringing it back, a rebirth, and then it got going and people loved it again, and then you were like, no, we can't let it die, and resuscitating it. And that is a really nice story, and so thank you for being here for that.
Thanks for having me. I will always talk about Netrunner to the regret of all of my friends and family, my girlfriends.
And in my links, I should have put the Twitter. I will actually, sorry, on the YouTube thing, neither of us caught. Let me actually, twitter.com project NISEI. So if people are looking for Netrunner stuff, where would you like them to go?
NISEI.net. That's our main site.
Okay.
We do a lot on Twitter, and we will try and do more on Instagram, I promise. That's my commitment here. We will have a go at doing more.
You can only do so much. And regarding the future, we talked about all the limitations and the fact that yes, you can only look so far ahead because you never know what's going to happen. But if people want to check me out, so of course, stuffbybez.com, stuffbybez.bigcards.com. I am on twitter.com/stuffbybez, instagram.com/stuffbybez. It's twitch.tv where you're probably watching, if you're watching live, or if you're watching after the fact. All my old episodes are on YouTube. And stuffbybez.com/discord. Join in, and there's a channel about board games. I mean, if everyone wants to come in here and start spamming about Netrunner, then you can do that, and I will probably make a separate channel if it gets too much. But I just like being around people. This is honestly why I do this show. This is why I started the Discord, because I want to have nice people kind of conversing and sharing the lovely things. So we share pictures of cats and foods we enjoyed and walks and all sorts of other things. That's, to me, the most important thing in any game is the people they are playing with. I keep on quoting myself when I said, we are just dust. In a cosmic sense of things, we are nothing, but the dust we touch is kind of what makes life worth living.
There's a saying that gets you trotted out every time like a big tournament goes on, and it's just like, Netrunner was just an excuse to hang out with my friends. Like, we all went to Minnesota for the last one, and it was just basically like, the airport security, like, why are you here? Well, technically it's to play a game, but really I'm just here to hang out with these 28 other nerds.
I like that. Yeah, all of these things are having experiences together, sharing time together. And that's why, I like to finish off by firstly thanking everyone. Obviously, Serenity, thank you for, connecting, and when I reached out, getting back and chatting about this stuff and coming on the show. I want to thank everyone who's been watching, whether you've been commenting along and letting me know how your day's been going and enjoying your runs, or whether you're been popping in some questions, or whether you're just watching and lurking. Honestly, it gives me a sense of validation. It gives me like a sense of purpose. It gives me a reason to get out of bed sometimes in the morning, is the truth. And so that's why my final question to everyone is, over to you. What are you up to? You can share, but only if you want to. So if you are looking forward to doing something, or if you are dreading doing something, but you want to tell us because maybe you want a sense of obligation to do it, because you need that, like, outside, that kind of, hey, I've told someone I'm going to do it. Whether it's a hope and ambition, whether it's exciting or boring or super serious or fun and frivolous, let us know what you are up to. And, that's so lovely of you to say, Aogukip, and who says, thanks so much. Really enjoyed the energy and passion for games and a trip down Netrunner memory lane for me. I mean, why is it only memory lane? I'm sure that Serenity would love to say, hey, why not play today?
It should be in your future as well.
See, I'm doing all your promotion work for you.
The thing about like what I do is that like you find that your energy is infectious, and you get people doing your job for you just because you get so excited about it.
And Scrappy Kid says, been for a run, going rubbish picking at 2 p.m. So in an hour and a half, you're just going around the city and picking rubbish as a community project. That sounds lovely. Good on you. Back to work after 10 days off tomorrow. Well, I hope you've had a wonderful extended weekend, and I hope you have a wonderful... I don't honestly know your relationship with your job, if you are kind of finding it to drudgery, or if you're... But I hope you're enjoying it. I hope there's some joy there, fingers crossed, that you can enjoy something. And yeah, there you go. That is something that how Good Kip is going to do today. So Serenity, what are you doing today?
I am going to meet up with a friend that I haven't seen for over a year, and we're going to go and have ice creams in the park, whether they're terrible or not, because that's what we do every time. Like, we used to date, and our first date was going for ice cream, and then after we stopped dating, we didn't talk for a while, and then when we started talking again, we went out and we had ice cream, and now I haven't seen her for a year because of lockdown. We're going out and we're having ice cream. That's our thing. Whatever the weather, it could be December, it doesn't matter. We're getting ice cream.
True story. I was in Munich. There's a person called the Crazy Eismacher. I think crazy is also crazy in German. And they had ice cream based on blue cheese and another ice cream based on beer.
Okay, that blue cheese ice cream, that sounds terrible. Did you try it?
Oh, it was lovely. It was so good.
Fair enough. Okay,
I really like unusual taste, though.
Fair, yeah, okay.
And then, they had a little market stall in the Christmas market, and then the person whose place I was staying at, we'd just met at Essen a few months before, said, "Oh, they've got a proper building," and yeah, they left. They had to go somewhere, but I stayed at their place for maybe like one night extra, if you know what I mean. And then kind of put the keys through the lock. Anyway, on my day on my own, I went to the Crazy Eismacher. But the actual building, I was going there expecting some more crazy flavors. But it's shut in winter. True story. Disappointing.
That is disappointing.
Yeah.
When you want blue cheese ice cream, you don't care what the weather's like. That's as far as I'm concerned. You're just like, no, I need some crazy ice cream. I don't care if it's middle of February.
So my lesson is that I'm going to go back to Munich one day in the summer to go to the Crazy Eismacher, not just for the blue cheese, but apparently there's all the other crazy flavors. And so I wanted to check out what the other crazy flavors are, because I don't know if you can get much crazier than blue cheese and beer ice cream. It was like they also had one about German beer ice cream.
No, I can't think of anything weirder than blue cheese ice cream.
I mean, like if they started doing vegetables, that would be pretty.
Ice cream would be pretty weird.
Spinach? Did you say?
Spinach ice cream, yeah.
That would be weird. Yeah, that would be weird. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, what am I up to? I might be buying myself a wee treat, like a click and collect. That's the one I'm looking for. A bubble tea. I was very disappointed yesterday. I clicked the bubble tea and they had 3 options. It was no tapioca, no bubbles, or fewer bubbles. And I was thinking, okay, I want all the things, but I need to click one of them. Well, there's tapioca and there's bubbles, and this thing says it has tapioca. So maybe if I say no topping bubbles, that means that I still get the tapioca. And then I went and got my drink, and it didn't have any tapioca in it, and I was disappointed. But because of the way that COVID is, I wasn't going to say, hey, this is why. And so I'm going to go to try a different place. But apparently Scrappy Kid suggests I make blue cheese ice cream the game. You know what? I am going to be doing in the not too distant future a whole bunch of chaotic shenanigans. If you have enjoyed this show, as I mentioned at the start, I am streaming every day at 10 a.m. UK time for the next 60 days. And tomorrow is going to be some chaotic shenanigans. It depends what people are up for. I might just, try out some games on Steam and see what they're like. There's a couple of Jackbox Party Pack games that I've still not tried that I've got access to. I might try designing and testing out myself something on paper, and there'll probably be some singing and some chatting along the way. Tuesday, I'm going to be singing and playing the keyboard and doing all sorts of that. In the evening, for just a very focused 1 hour, 8 p.m. until 9 p.m. UK time, we will be playing a party game called The Most Like a Pineapple, and I have some amazing guests. I'm so excited to have this. It's going to be like a relaunch. On Wednesday, I'm going to be game making with Rita and Tiz. So that's Tiz Creole, my co-designer of Seize the Power, and Rita Modal, best known for Men at Work and also King of 12. Marketing is a thing that we will be chatting about, myself and Jess and Dean on Thursday. Friendly Friday Forum, discussing media making. Oh my gosh, this is also an exciting one. So next Saturday, I've got 5 people. I've got Antoinette Mason, Dutch Yoda, Anna Vassenberg, and Matthew Warwick, I think it is. But there will be 5 of us all chatting about making media and doing reviews and all sorts of things and how this all goes. And so that is all my streams for the next week, and please go and check that out. And next Sunday, I will be back to just reviewing some general things. Honestly, next week, I'm not sure. I'll be picking the day before, but I'll be chatting about some things. Please feel free to share, spread the word. If you're watching live, then I am going to be doing a raid. And at this point, do you have any final words that you want to say, Serenity? Or
no, thank you very much for having me on and giving me an opportunity to talk about my favourite game.
Well, we have. Let me read Colin. So it's Kolinsky. That is the person that I'm going to read, who is a lovely musician. And we are going to check them out in just a minute. If you are watching live, if you're not watching live, I hope you have a you can listen to some guitar music or check them out, or just do whatever you want. I'm not the boss of you. Do what you think is going to bring you some pleasure. And please copy paste some or all of this message just as the raid call when we get over there. And that is the end of the show. Lots of love to everyone. And for now, bye, 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 bye. This is a goodbye song. Bye, 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 bye. Thank you for watching along. Bye, bye, Bye bye. This is the end of the show. Bye bye. Bye bye. Now it's time to go. Bye bye. Bye bye. This is a goodbye song. Bye bye. Bye bye. Thank you for watching along. Bye bye. Bye bye. This is the end of the show. And bye bye. Bye bye. And now it's time to go. Bye bye. Thank you for net running along. Bye bye, Rob. Bye bye, Scrappy Kid. Bye bye, everyone. Bye bye. Bye bye. Bye bye. Bye bye. Bye bye. Yeah. Bye bye. Bye bye. Bye bye. Bye bye. Bye bye. Okay. Yeah, that's the end.